Good morning, everybody. As we go to the Parsha, we're holding in the portion of Tzav, which is in the book of Leviticus, chapter 6, verse number 1. God spoke to Moshe, saying, Tzav is Adam's Bez Bana, speak to Aaron and his sons, Lamer, saying, Zeis Teiras Oila, this is the law of a carbon Oila. This is the burnt offering ad amoikta that was brought onto the altar al hamizbeach, which was on the mizbeach kol halayla, the entire night ad haboiker, until the morning. Ve'eish hamizbeach tukabay, and the fire of the altar will burn on it throughout the night. Now she says, Tzav, command, when it says the word tzav, which means to command somebody, denotes an urging. The Torah wants to say something special about this carbon that the kohen needs to be inspired to do, emphasizing the weight attached to the instruction that it implies immediately and for future generations. Why did the Torah suddenly become so important about this mitzvah, accentuated this carbon, this sacrifice? So the Gemara says that Rabbi Shimon said that the Torah found it especially necessary to urge the command fulfillment of this way, because in a case of monetary loss, because over here nobody was receiving anything from the carbon, it was totally consumed on the altar. So the kohen might say, let's say, if he can get a carbon shlomim, which he can get something from it, he'll maybe go to that first. Therefore, the Torah wanted to emphasize this carbon, this sacrifice. This section is written to teach us that the burning of the fats and the limbs of the sacrifice upon the altar is valid and is done any time during the night. That means that the carbon needed to be shechted and brought up to the altar before the night, but the burning could be done the entire night, and as valid at any time during the night after the sacrifice was slaughtered, not only during the day. And to teach us regarding disqualified sacrifice, which of them must be taken down if brought up into the altar, and which is brought up and are taken down, because we have to know the law. There's certain sacrifices, even though they were brought up, they were taken down. Certain ones that they were brought up, they weren't taken down once they were brought up. For whatever the term Torah connotates, carrying in simple meaning of deduction, new law, it is inclusive. And thus here it tells us that one law applies to holy items brought up onto the altar, even the disqualified ones, that if they were brought up onto the altar, once they are brought up on the Mizbeach, then you don't take it down, even though they might become disqualified due to other issues. Here, Rashi says, this words, but then the Torah says he oila. Then it comes to he. This is the oila. So here, every rule has an exception. These words are to exclude from the above mentioned rule the animal that was used for bestiality, and similar case of disqualification that did not take place in the sanctuary. Let's say that means the oila was brought, the animal was brought, it was brought onto the altar already, and then we found out that this animal was used for bestiality, or was used for Avodah Zarah, was used for Avodah Zarah outside the temple for whatever reason, then you would take it down. So the general rule was anything that was disqualified in the temple, it was kept on. Anything that its disqualification was out of the temple before it even came to the temple, then it goes down, even though it's on the Mizbeach. And animals that are already unfit as a sacrifice before entering the courtyard, even if such animal is brought onto the altar, you're taken down. So there's an inclusion, and there's always, every rule has a inclusion. Verse number 3. And the kohen priest will wear linen tunic, and linen trousers, al besada in his garment. And here we have the mitzvah of haramas hadeshen, taking off the ashes. He'll take take off a scoop of ashes that the fire burnt as oila al mizbeach, v'sam meit al mizbeach, and he puts it near the altar. This scoopful of ashes. Now she says this is a linen garment, this is a tunic. Why does the Torah tell us midai? Midai means its measurement. That means it has to have the right size. Al basare, he needs to wear a garment that fits him. Al basare, number two is that there's not to be anything that separates him from this garment. What does that mean? He lifts the ashes. He should scoop full of a pan, scoop of a panful from the innermost coals that have been totally consumed and become ashes, and place them in the side of the ark of the ramp. What does the Torah say again? The ashes that the fire ate, the ashes that the fire consumed, ascended the offering and turned into ashes. From that ashes, he must remove a portion and deposit them next to the altar. Ala mizbeach. What does it mean? Again, on the altar. We know that the fire is on the altar. If he found that sacrificial parts had not yet been consumed, so you might think, oh, maybe that you throw it away, put it together, bury it. No, he placed them on the altar fire after having raked the coals this way and that way, and having taken the innermost ashes. He would make sure that if there's any, because he did this in the morning. It came in the morning when he came to take out the ashes. He would make sure if there's any kind of things left over, for whatever reason, fell out of the fire, put it back into the fire. Verse number 4. He takes other garments and he puts on a different pair of garments. He takes his ashes and he buries it outside the camp. A makam tar, in a clean place. Now she says, Ein zechayva. This is not an obligation to change your garments. It's a proper conduct. While taking ashes outside the camp, he's not soil the garments worn and perform regular service. When he goes outside the Beis Hamikdash, take off his garments. That means the kohen would come to the Beis Hamikdash. We knew in the Beis Hamikdash there was a garment room, and he would put on the garments of his service. And when he went to home, he took off the garments of the service left in the Beis Hamikdash and put on his regular garments. That's the way it was done. Not he was obligated, but that was a normal way. They used to clean the garments for him, and he used to prepare his garments. So he would know where they are. Even the place of part of the ashes next to the altar, as the garments his servant wears when cooking the pot for his master, should not be wear when pouring cup for his master. Therefore, he should put on other garments. One's inferior quality to those who use serving the altar, and he goes and does the Avodah. He blows and brings it to outside. Now she says that were heap in the top of what. This is the concept of when there was too much ashes, that there was a mitzvah every day taking ashes. But we mentioned that already. That was a miracle that it went into the ground of the Beis Hamikdash. Then there was a mitzvah of Aramas Hadeshen to take that was too much ashes on the altar. So they had to take that ashes and that's what Ash says. After it's accumulated, there was no more room for arranged on the wood pile. He would remove them from there. This task needed not to be done every day. The task of making sure to clean the mizbeach from ashes was done whenever it was needed. But the removal of a portion of ashes every day, there was an obligation to take off Aramas Hadeshen, a portion of the ashes. Verse number 5, a burning fire in the altar must not be allowed to go out. For the kohen had an obligation to put wood on the fire every single day. And he put upon that wood. He puts upon the burnt offering, the morning burnt offering. And on those wood, he put upon the peace offerings. Now she says, the burning of the altar. This is a big machlekes in the Gemara. You can look it up in the Gemara Yuma. How many fires were on the Mizbeach? She says, scripture over here repeats itself many times. The burning, ala meikta, and the fire pole, and the fire, the altar shall burn, so it took him 4 times. So a fire must be burning. All these verses expound in the tractate of Yuma. You can look within the Gemara where our sages differ how many wood piles were on the altar. How many fires were on the altar? 3, 4, etc. There's a machlekes there in the Gemara. Now she says, you must arrange to send the offering. This is the daily offering. This is the morning, the Daven Shachas. This is the morning sacrifice that was brought every single day. Chevli Ashlamim, the fats of the peace offering. So that's not obligation. If peace offerings are brought there, our sage Evan learned Aleh, what means upon it? It means that the daily morning ascended offering completed Hashlem all the other sacrifice. So we know that the first thing was the Oila in the morning, Oila's Tamid in the morning, and the afternoon was the last one. Hashlem. That's it. There was nothing else. No other sacrifice was brought after the Tamid of Ben Abayim. That was the last sacrifice. Verse number 6. Eish Tamid took al Mizbeach, and a fire used to kindle lamp of the candelabrum, which is lit regularly, must burn upon the altar. Loi sichbe, it must not go out. So Rashi says, consuming constant fire. This refers to the fire which says Tamid. Where does it say Tamid by a fire? That's the lamp. At the menorah is Tamid. Lalis ner Tamid. So it must be kindled from the fire. So why was it Tamid? It was not Tamid. It only burnt officially from the night to the morning. So what is the meaning Tamid? So number one, it's brought down that the middle lamp burnt Tamid. It was a miracle. But in general, it means because it was taken from the fire of the altar. So the Kohen would take the fire from the altar, which was Tamid, because that fire, Eish HaMizbeach took a leib leisich, but there needed to be a fire on this altar 24/7. And they would take the fire from the altar and light the menorah with it. Leisichbe, Rashi says, what does the Torah tell us that the fire needs to be and you're not allowed to turn it off? Comes to teach us one who extinguishes the fire on the altar not only doesn't do a mitzvah for not having a fire continuously on the altar, but he actually does an aveda. He does a sin by burning off the fire. Verse number 7 says, this is the regular, this is the rule of a mincha. This is the Torah of a mincha. Hakavesim Aaron, the sons of Aaron should bring it Hashem before God, El Pesach El Meir, to the front of the altar. El Pesach Mizbeach, to the face of the Mizbeach. Now she says, again, it says the word Torah. When it's Torah, it means it's a general rule. One law applies to all grain offerings, that all require oil and frankincense, as it says in this passage. For I might have thought that the only grain offerings of an Israelite, which is a fistful taken, requires oil and frankincense. How do we know it applies to a priest who brings a grain offering, which is totally burnt on the Mizbeach? Maybe it didn't need to have oil. Therefore, the Torah says, Torah. There's one law. What's one law? One law that every mincha needs to have is oil and frankincense. Haka, very say, he should bring it. This refers to bringing the grain offering near the southwest corner of the altar. Lefnei Hashem, before God. This is the west side of the altar, which is facing the Beis Hamikdash, because the Mizbeach faced the Beis Hamikdash. When you walked out of the Beis Hamikdash, you hit the Mizbeach. You saw right away the walls of the Mizbeach. Lefnei Hashem, El Pnei Mizbeach. This is the south side of Mizbeach. So El Pnei Mizbeach, the face of the Mizbeach, was the south side. That was the ramp was. That's the Pnei Mizbeach, the face of the Mizbeach. That was in the south. The north side was where they used to bring the sacrifices. So that was the north side of Mizbeach. The south side was the ramp. The west side faced the Beis Hamikdash. The east side faced the door of the Beis Hamikdash. You see, the Kohen lifts out a memorial portion from with his fist. And then he separates all the frankincense on the offering. He takes it all, as we learned last week. So he takes a fistful of the mincha. He takes all the frankincense. He puts that on the altar. That had a separate fire. The mincha had a separate fire. That's one of the fires that was on the mizbeach. Was the fire for the mincha offering. Haskados al Hashem was a pleasing remembrance to God. Now she says, he lifted out from the united mass. That was a full tenth of an ephah, must be together with the vessels when the fistful was removed. So it was a whole pot of things, whatever broken, because different kind of minchas. There was a mincha made out of already matzahs, so they used to break it up in pieces, and he would grab a fistful from the center. The kumtzei, This teaches is not instead of that he may not instead make a measure equivalent to a fistful to scoop the amount. He has to actually just take it from the whole thing. He's not allowed to separate a kaimitz. From the flour, from the fine flour, and from the grain offering, as well as its oil. From here, we learn that he must take a fistful from the place where there is much oil. So he has to make sure that there's oil when there's oil on this mincha. Mincha, the grain offering, must be clearly defined. It cannot be mixed with another grain offering. So ha-mincha, the mincha, that he needs to know when the kohen does this avodah, he needs to know what this mincha is for. Because there could have been many minchas brought. You need to know, again, the kohen when he did the service, he had to have kavana. You need to know what he's doing. That means Rashi says he gathers the frankincense on top of the grain offering after the fistful has been taken and burns it along with the fistful. Since there's always specified regarding one grain offering stated in Parshas Vayikra, it was necessary to repeat this passage here to include all grain offerings to have the same law. That means even though we already mentioned this last week, but over here the Torah says Torah achas, to emphasize the one law situation. And they said it's and anything that's left over from this mincha. Yochel Aaron, one of the Aaron, and his sons can eat matzah techelu, they eat it as matzahs. B'makim kodesh, they had to eat it in a holy place, in the Beis Hamikdash. B'chatzar oil moed, in the temple court. He doesn't have to eat it right in front of the altar. He can eat it anywhere in the temple court. Beis Hamikdash was a big area. Yechlu, he can eat it in that area. Rashi says, "Ve'ezu means makom kodesh." This means even in the courtyard of the temple. Verse number 10. Leisafa, leisa'afa, chametz. They're not allowed to bake these things leavened. This had to be matzah. Nasati Isa, if I've given them a portion of my fire offering, Meishai from my fire offering, Kodesh Kadoshimi, it's holy of holies, Kachatas Kaosham, it's like a sin offering and guilt offering. Now she says, it means this indicates that even the leftover portion are forbidden to be leavened. Kachatas Kaosham, a sin grain offering is like a sin offering, therefore its fistful was separated with the intent. Other than the particular offering, it was invalid. A voluntary grain offering is like a guilt offering. Therefore, if a fistful was separated with intent of anything else, it was simply invalid. You needed to have the intent of the offering. Verse number 11. Every male amongst the Aaron descendants can eat it. This is a law for the generations to come. Whoever touches this mincha will become holy. Rashi says what it comes to teach us, kol zachar, every male. This comes to tell us that even a balmum, even if somebody, a kohen, is a balmum and he can't do the service, he's a defect, he's a handicapped kohen, and therefore he cannot do the avoid in the Beis Hamikdash, but he can still eat from the carbon. Why does it stated here? If a merely eating a sacrifice, this is already stated regarding such a priest. It says already a pasuk, he may eat from God's food, from the sacrifice, holy, superior holiness. So why does the Torah need to mention it here when we have a pasuk later on, where the Torah says openly that a kohen has a mum that's deformed, God forbid, he's a handicapped kohen, he's still allowed to eat from any sacrifice. Rather, it includes a priest whose bodily defect are having his own equal share. Over here, the Torah wants to tell us that not only that he can eat, but he eats equally with other kohanim. That means even though he was a kohen that didn't do the service, and there's a kohen that did do the service, nevertheless, if he was part of that group, he ate from the kohen equally, from the kohen who did the service to the kohen who for whatever reason could not do the service. Kol ha'sheyigba, this refers to any sacrificial meat, lesser of holiness, and non-sacrificial food that touched the grain offering, absorbed the same flavor. This comes to teach us that if for any reason, a kohen, for example, brought his own food from his house, and then it touched the carbon, it now becomes holy. And what's the law is, and basically can't leave the temple. He now has to eat it in the Beis Hamikdash. Yigdash, liyas kemayu, it becomes like it. Shim plasu, if it becomes invalid, the whole thing becomes invalid. Yinksheda, if it becomes valid, it gains all the restrictions of a carbon. And that completes the law, the Chumash, the Torah of today. The Alter Rebbe is talking about, we started chapter 39, the Alter Rebbe is talking about the concept of where the neshama, ultimately the reward of the neshama. The Gemara says, great is the person that comes to Gan Eden and he has the Torah in his hands. So these are the Alter Rebbe says that the neshamas, ultimately the souls that will serve God with intellect, love, and fear, are privileged to abide in the higher Gan Eden of Bria, in the world of Bria. That's the highest level, and most of the highest levels of tzaddikim. You have certain neshamas of Atzilus, but like Moshe Rabbeinu. But in general, all the neshamas of tzaddikim go to the world of Bria, and that's for the reward given to Gan Eden, paradise, is that soul's delight in the radiance of the Shekhinah. So that's why the tzaddikim, because they not only are people who serve God, but they serve God with delight. We learned in the Tanya, beginning of Tanya, meaning the delight in their perception of God's glory. Since one's reward commemorates this level of divine service, the delight of an intellectual perception of godliness is reserved for souls who serve God with intellect, love, and fear of God during their lifetime. At this point, Alter Rebbe qualifies his earlier statement. Only those tzaddikim whose souls are on the level of neshama, the highest of the three levels of the soul itself, nefesh, ruach, neshama, which come into every body, the nefesh, ruach, and neshama of every soul. So some people reach up to this level of neshama. They have that capability. Those a level of neshama, understanding godliness directly, as it were, without resource to analogy, or on terms, they don't have to come to an analogy because they understand the concept of Torah within itself. Love and fear follow from such a direct understanding of godliness as a natural existence. They are not products of intellect, a generation removed. They are intellect. That's what they call the Chacham. So there's a Chacham, there's a Talmud Chacham. There's a person that reached Chachma. Alter Rebbe gave example at the beginning of time. There's a king and one person, a prince who's becoming a king. There's a Talmud Chacham and there's a Chacham. A Chacham is the one who acquired wisdom. He has it already. So it's not something that he's learning. He's acquired the concept of, he's there already. So a tzaddik is a person who is acquired already. He's in the level in the Shama. He's not receiving it, he has it. In fact, the emotions may be considered as a part of the intellect process rather than the emotions proper. They are part of the wisdom itself. Alter Rebbe continues, however, this applies specifically only to the actual level of the neshama of these tzaddikim. The level of neshama being that of intellect. As the verse states, the divine neshama will give them discernment. So you have that concept, they live within a neshama. Shebechinas meichen the gadlus, which represents superior intellectual perception. Baruch Hu of the blessed God. But the level of spirit in that tzaddik itself. And so too the rest of the Jewish nation, their souls, which serve the Eibishter, serve God in love and fear of God, which is hidden, which we mentioned in chapter 38. Belev Kol Yisrael, in the heart of every Jew, not with love and fear born of intellect, but love and fear born of instinct. Ein Eilis Hashem. They don't go up to the world of Bria. They only reach to the world of Yitzira, the world of formation. That's the world of emotions. Only like b'Shabbos v'Chodesh Balvad. The neshama goes up on Shabbos. Every Shabbos, all neshamas go up to the world of Bria. They have tainug. That's why there's the Einik Shabbos. They have a tainug. They have the light of Shabbos in this world, and they have a delight of Shabbos in the world to come. That's why we say the song Me'ein Olam Haba. Shabbos is Me'ein Olam Haba. It's like the world to come. Whether it means Gan Eden, it means even in Gan Eden, Shabbos is going to be different than the rest of the week. On Shabbos, all our souls go up to the world of Bria. When all creation ascends to a higher level, as written, every month a new moon, And that every week on all Shabbos, all flesh will come and prostrate themselves before me, God. It is only then that these souls are sent to the world of Bria, to the higher Gan Eden. The San, they go, the means of the pillar, the means of this pillar. The souls ascend there to delight in God, and to bask in the radiance of the Shechina, of the presence of God. Such pleasure is the regressives of the soul in Bria, since the soul's delight is from the understanding and appreciation of godness, to the extent that the soul is capable of such understanding. The intellect of the created beings, being the delight and derives pleasure, only that which it conceives, understands, knows, corresponds to Chabad, and grasps with its intellect and understanding. So only those things, only those concepts can the neshama ultimately have a tainugin in what he understands, what he comprehends in his day-to-day situation. What every person can grasp of the blessed Ein Sof, through his understanding, through his wisdom and understanding, which will radiate to him in the world of Bria. So in Bria, enabling the soul to perceive godness, for as mentioned earlier, the Chabad of Atzilus, to which the Alter Rebbe refers to his wisdom, his understanding, radiates in Bria, for which reason Bria is the world of understanding. That's why Bria is the world, and we learned also Bria is the world of Gemara, the learning importance of learning Gemara. Because the more of Gemara you learn in this world, the more you'll have an enjoyment of the world of Bria in the world to come. With this, the Alter Rebbe concludes his statement that on Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, the souls of other Jews who have not even served with intellect and love of God ascend to the world of Bria, to the world of creation. These souls who serve God with natural love and fear are privileged to rise occasionally to the world of Bria, higher than the angels who abode in the world of Yetzirah, as mentioned above, never rising to the world of Bria. Even though that these, although they too, like the angels, serve God only in natural fear and love. So why then their service of God considered superior to the angels itself? Why do regular Jews merit to go to the world of Bria? Because there's one thing that they're greater than the Malachim. Every Jew is ultimately greater than all angels. And that is because even a Jew that serves God, because he's a Jew, and because his natural instinct, he changes the world. He changes the world. They change, they clothe, they change the world. The sitra achar, clothes in the body, is subdued. They change the world. Whether in this case of fear, the realm of turning away from evil, referring from doing evil and thereby conquering hatayv l'shavar, conquering, crushing the desire through not giving to illicit desire, expression of thought, speech, and action. They change the world. They change the negative world. Whether it's in the concept of doing good, as mentioned above, meaning actively pursuing the observance of mitzvahs and love of God, despite contrary desire of the animal soul, which is rooted in the sitra achar. So that's the difference. And not only they did it that way, and we're not angels, we're people that can choose the opposite. We have free choice. We have the choice to choose evil. That's our free choice. An angel has no free choice. And a human being chose to do good. And that to subdue his evil inclination and to elevate the world and to make this world a better hell. As I mentioned before, the greatness of something coming out of darkness. A malach has no darkness. A malach lives in a world of light. And all are mentioned above concerning the abode of station of the souls. The Rebbe notes, station is not necessarily an asnamis to abode. A soul who is abode in the world of Yetzirah may rise periodically on Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh to the temporary station of Bria. So really, you can be in both. We are in both places. We're in the world of Yetzirah and the world of Bria, because every Shabbos we go to the world of Bria. Torah and divine service, however, are actually absorbed in the 10 spheres, which are manifests of godliness, and with the Ein Sof life unites in a perfect unity. Meaning the Ein Sof light radiates, each world is completely unified with the sphere of that world. That you should realize that even though you don't reach up to the highest levels here in this world, but ultimately your avodah, even your service, in its instinct way, in its natural way, is gonna emanate throughout the entire world. The godliness will emanate throughout the entire world, and it will emanate through the spheres of all the world. V'hainu b'yitzfiras de bria, especially in the meaning the divine service will ascend to the 10 spheres of bria when generated by intellect of fear and love of the 10 spheres of Yetzirah, when prompted by a natural fear and love of God. And within them, within the spheres of bria Yetzirah, is closed the 10 spheres of the world of emanation, the world of Atzilus. Which the world, the 10 spheres of the world of Atzilus is united with the 10 spheres of the world of Bria. So ultimately, my Avodah affects all worlds. The Yud spheres Atzilus, and the 10 spheres of the world of Atzilus, Miyuchedes, is united with Ein Sof. But really, I affect ultimately the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. That's why ascending to the spheres of Bria Yetzirah, the soul, Torah, and divine service actually unites with God Himself. The soul itself, on the other hand, in contrast to the Torah and the divine service, are not absorbed into the godness of 10 spheres Atzilus. They don't. They're separate from it. They come from it. They stand in the chambers of the abodes of Bria Yetzirah, which the worlds of Bria Yetzirah, separate beings that are not united with God as the sphere itself. And they enjoy, they bask in the light of the Shekhinah. They bask in the light. That's the tainuk. So they don't become the Sfira. Neshama is a separate entity from the Sfira, but the Torah that he learns becomes part of the attribute. Who zif teirasim? That's a reverberant of the Torah that they learn. That means the Torah that they learn becomes part of the Sfira. We call it a Sfira because it shines, and the Torah that they learn shines back to them, to the Neshama. It shines back to them, and they bask in the light of their learning. That's how it works. That's why the Torah you learn in this world will shine to you in the upper world. Ki schar mitzvah, hi mitzvah atzma. That's the meaning. Schar mitzvah, mitzvah. The reward of the mitzvah is the mitzvah. What does it mean the reward of the mitzvah is the mitzvah? Because the reward of the mitzvah is the ray of light that you receive from what the mitzvah is connected to the sphira, that it goes lamaila. So the way the sphira ultimately shines above, shines back to you, shines back to the person, to the neshama of the person that did the mitzvah. And that completes the Tanya of today. My dear friends, today is, I believe, the 8th day of the month of Nisan. Second. Today is the 8th day of the month, and the Tillim of the day is chapter 44 to chapter 48. If you do those 5 chapters, you do the chitas of the day. Rebbe writes in Hayom Yom, every soul has a particular avodah in the areas of intellect and emotion, in accordance with the soul's nature and character. It's written, "From my foes I have given me wisdom." From the evil tendencies, one detects his natural traits. He can become wise and know how to handle the correction of these traits, and how to subordinate his powers in the service of God. What a beautiful Hayom Yom. I invite you all today, 10 o'clock. This is going to be the Sunday, last Sunday before Yom Tov. The next 2 Sundays, we're not going to do Tanya. So we're going to do the last day at 10 o'clock. You come to the JEI or come on Zoom, and we'll learn together, Tanya together. I wish you all a wonderful and beautiful day. We'll see you all tomorrow. We'll continue Chitas at 8 a.m. Have a wonderful and beautiful